I just want to praise you and I just want to thank you in this day, Father. I thank you that we are in such a transitioning time at this point in time, just as the seasons are changing, just as we feel in where we are right now, it's now really starting to cool down and we are starting to feel the change of that season of the autumn that is here, leading us into winter, where in the northern hemisphere, spring is upon them, wanting to lead them into summer. And so it is that we are preparing ourselves to enter into a new month, a new transitioning time, a time of where we are preparing ourselves to come and climb up the mountain before we are able to stand and be given the commands in Exodus chapter 19, Exodus chapter 20, that we are coming now in this wilderness where we are to be tested and to be tried. But Abba, I thank you that as we go forth in this new month, in going to go forth into this new month, that you have been equipping us. You have given us the resilience of the lion of the tribe of Yahudah that's gone ahead, that's roaring, that's preparing us. That we have crossed over, whether it's to cross over into a promised land or whether it's to cross over into a wilderness. But we have crossed over. We are to come out of Babylon and everything that Babylon represents. We are to come out of Egypt and everything that Egypt represents. We are to come out. And we are to be able to be a house that you are wanting to seal off with your presence, that we can become a set apart, remnant bride that is able to walk in the fullness of who you are, to understand that for such a time as this, we have been created, because Scripture speaks about a generation yet to be created that will praise you. A generation yet to be created that will seek your face, like the generation of Yaakov spoken of in Psalm 24. So, Abba, I thank you that you alone will be able to come and do a mighty, mighty work in our lives. That you alone will be able to come and thrust us forth so that we may be those that will represent your kingdom. Those that in this time need to be able to become a menorah. You are the menorah, but we are the ones that have to be able to shine the light. You are the ultimate menorah, but we are those olive trees that as we are being crushed is being able to fill the menorah to shine forth the light. So I pray, Father, that you give us the revelation and the understanding that we need in the hour that we are in, to understand the critical hour that we find ourselves in. And yes, there's going to be the trials. Yes, there's going to be the tests. But you are knocking at the door of our hearts. And you are saying, if you open the door, I will come in. And I will sit down and I will eat with you. What are you going to feed us? The revelation of your word. You are going to open up your word to us, Abba. You are going to give us the understanding of the deeper revelation of the word, of where we can be set free because it's only you come to set us free. It's your truth of your word that sets us free. So, Father, as you knocking at the door of our hearts, we are to hear your voice. We are to shama. We are to hear. We are to obey so that that door will be opened. That we would open up the door of our hearts, that we would open up our eye gates, our ear gates, that we will open up our mouth gates, that we would open up and speak forth your word, because we have seen, because we have heard, because we will be witnesses for you. And that you will come in and you will dine with us and us with you. And so we will be seated at a table in the presence of our enemies. And you will reveal yourself. And you will destroy our enemies. Because you will seat us at a table, at a banquet with you, in the very presence of our enemies. And you will dine with us. And you will reveal yourself to us. And so, Father, I thank you, because truly we are in the hour now, in this time, in the 40 days of when you walked this earth, and you revealed yourself to your people. And so I ask you, Father, will you reveal yourself to us? Open up the mind of our understanding. Open up our ears. Open up our hearts. Father, I pray that you will come and arrest every deaf and dumb spirit that keeps your people captive. And every lying spirit that keeps your people captive. Will you come with the truth of your word? And will you come and set people free? And so I thank you, Father, that you will come and anoint my lips with a coal of fire, so that only that which you have for me to speak, I will speak. That it will not be by might, not by power, but by your Ruach, for the glory and the honor of your name. I pray this in Yahushua's name. Hallelujah. So we praise the Father. We were looking last week, and we looked at these two olive trees, and we're really going to need to go a little bit deeper in the revelation of the understanding of these two olive trees and this menorah and this vision that was given to the prophet Zechariah. Because truly what Zechariah is seeing here is going deep into the future that actually was fulfilled already in Matthew chapter 17 verses 3 to 4. But it can go even deeper than that for us to understand. So if we have a look at this two olive trees, and out of these two olive trees, it says that there is a bowl, a golden bowl on the top of it. And on the stand, 7 lamps with 7 sprouts to the 7 lamps. So there had to be 7 sprouts that were going to the 7 lamps from the bowl. But then there are 2 olive trees on either side. One at the right, one at the left. And then when we get to verse 10, it says, "For who has despised the day of small beginnings? They shall rejoice when they see the plumb line in the hand of Zerubbabel. These 7 are the eyes of Yahuah, which diligently search throughout all the earth." And we looked last week at 2 Chronicles 16 verses 9 that says Yahuah is wanting to show himself strong on behalf of those whose hearts are perfect. He's wanting to show himself strong on behalf of those that are perfect. And we understand that there's the perfection that the Father is looking at is not a perfection of a perfection that we understand as I'm without sin. And so this week, the Father actually woke me up the one morning and he asked me, it was on Sunday, he woke me up to the word, be perfect as I'm perfect. And that is in Matthew 5, verse 48. So in Matthew 5, verses 48, it tells us that, so the Father gave me the scripture in Matthew 5, verses 48, that says, therefore be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. So this is what the Father is wanting us to be able to be, is perfect. So what does that word perfect mean? That word perfect is tamam. And from tamim, so it's tamim and it's from tamam, which means entire, literally, figuratively, morally, and also as a noun, integrity, truth without blemish, complete, full, perfect, sincere, sincerity, sound, without spot, undefiled, upright, whole. So that is in the Hebrew. In the Greek, it's teleios. And it means finished, it means brought to an end, it means finished, wanting nothing, necessary to completeness, human integrity, a virtue, full-grown adult of full age, mature, complete in various applications of labor, growth, mental and moral character, completeness of full age, a man that is perfect. And this is what the Father spoke of Noah. And this, we see in Genesis chapter 6, verses 9, he says, this is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, perfect in his generation. Noah walked with Yahuah. So that was spoken of Noah. Then it was spoken of Abraham, because in Genesis chapter 17, verses 1 to 4, it says, and it came to be when Abraham was 99 years old, that Yahuah appeared to Abram and said to him, I am El Shaddai, walk before me and be perfect, and I give my covenant between me and you, and shall greatly increase you. And Abram fell on his face, and Yahuah spoke with him, saying, as for me, look, my covenant is with you, and you shall become a father of many nations. So we've got to understand that to be perfect is completeness and maturity, meaning being fully grown and mature in our faith. It doesn't mean that we are sinless. It refers to full spiritual growth, rather than looking at our mistakes. It's our spiritual growth in Him. Because understand, we will not be without sin. We definitely saw that Abraham was not without sin. And we definitely saw that Noah was not without sin. But it was in the maturity. It was in the walk that they walked with the Father. It means wholeheartedness. It refers to having a heart that is fully committed to Yahuah, loving Him entirely. He's looking at the heart, that the heart must be perfect towards Him. And if you look at 1 Kings 15 verses 14, it says it's like the king Asa, and it says, but the high places were not removed. However, Asa's heart was perfect with Yahuwah all his days. So it also talks about perfecting love. So when we have perfect love, it drives out all fear, implying that we must have mature, unconditional love, which is this agape love, which means we're not going to take offense, which means we're going to love. We will lay down our lives for others because of the love that we have for the Father. It's the love that the Father has towards us. It's an unconditional love. It's not a love that comes with conditions. It's a love that comes unconditionally. And it's the highest form of spiritual maturity. It is the perfection through grace. Hebrews 10 verses 14 says, for by one offering he has perfected forever those who are being sanctified. This means that we are considered perfect in us standing in Yahushua. He's the one that is working through us because of the sacrifice that he gave. And therefore, we are in the process of being made holy. And that was the next thing that he then said to me. 2 days later, he said, be holy as I'm holy. And so it's to be able to, having to be perfect is having to be imputed with righteousness, because we understand we cannot achieve being sinless. But we have to be able to be clothed with righteousness. Being obedient, walking out in obedience to the Father's way. And so we've got to understand that perfection is not being sinless. To be able to be perfect is a call that we are called to in order to be able to grow in our maturity in our Messiah by relying on his grace, his mercy to come and change us and mature us to be able to walk in the fullness of the obedience towards him. This is what the Father is requiring of us. And that is what he wants, as when he says, the eyes of Yahuwah, which are diligently searching throughout all the earth. Because that's what he says in 2 Chronicles, that the eyes of Yahuwah are searching throughout all the earth to show himself strong on behalf of those whose heart is perfect towards him. Let me just read it again. I'm quoting it now, but I'm not reading it. For the eyes of Yahuwah diligently search throughout all the earth to show himself to be strong on behalf of those whose heart is perfect to him. And those are the people that he's looking for. Then it says that then I responded and said to him, what are these two olive trees, one at the right hand of the lampstand, the other at the left hand? And I responded a second time, and I said to him, what are these two olive branches which empty golden oil from themselves by means of the two gold pipes? So they have two gold pipes coming out of this olive tree. There's two gold pipes that are pouring this golden oil that is being able to be poured into this menorah, into this bowl that then on turn is going to light the menorah. And he says, do you not know what these are? And I said, no, Master. And he said, these are the two anointed ones who stand before the Master of all the earth. So that is why I'm saying, what was he seeing? He was seeing the vision that was talking about Elijah and Moses standing on the Mount of Transfiguration with Yahushua standing in the middle. But beloved, it is also representing the two olive trees, which I went deeper in last week in explaining that there's the wild olive tree, and then there's the original olive tree. The wild olive tree, according to Romans chapter 11, are those that have been grafted in. They are the wild olive tree. And then there is the original olive tree, which is the root comes from the stump of Jesse, which is from the house of Yahudah, who is Yahushua himself. And we are grafted in to that original olive tree. But many branches have been broken off, and they need to be brought back in again. And so when the Father showed me this whole, this two olive trees, and then these two pipes coming, these olive trees, we need to understand, who do they represent? Who do these olive trees represent? So we understand that according to Revelation 11:3-10, they can also represent the two witnesses who are going to be Elijah and Moses. And we already established that. Because the one calls down fire, because the other one turns the water into blood and brings the plagues. And the one tells the heavens, well, they both call down the fire, but the one tells the heavens that it's not to rain, and it doesn't rain. And who did that? None other than Elijah. So we already looked at all of that. But we now need to go a little bit deeper to understand, are there witnesses that these can also represent other witnesses? Because they are two olive trees. And who do these two olive trees represent? And what is this lampstand? And what does a lampstand represent? And this is what we need to look at. So we understand that the olive trees represent houses. We understand that this olive tree that was one olive tree was divided. It was divided through Rehoboam and Jeroboam. When Jeroboam rose up, Rehoboam, the son of King Solomon, took over the house of Israel as being the whole house of Israel as being the king. But then Rehoboam started putting up the temple taxes, and then the father rose up, Jeroboam, from the house of Ephraim. And he came to Rehoboam and said, look, you can't expect us to keep these temple taxes. We've already got a temple built. You are crippling the people. But Rehoboam didn't listen. He listened to the young advisors that said, no, put it even up higher. And so there came a split in the kingdom. And the father rose up the house of Ephraim. And the house of Ephraim, under the leadership of Jeroboam, took 10 of the tribes. Jeroboam took 10 of the tribes with him and went up north. But we already understand that didn't go very well. Because unfortunately, in his bloodline was still many Egyptian ways in him. And he hadn't dealt with his rejection. And he hadn't dealt with many things that were there. And so the minute he starts to receive a little bit of persecution, he goes back to Egypt. Because remember, where does the house of Ephraim come from? Originally, they are the ones that birthed out of Egypt, because he was the son of Joseph. And yet, Joseph was given the promises of the Father that would raise up to be a powerful tribe. And that's why the Father gave Joseph, for everything that Joseph went through, the Father gave 2 tribes that came out of Joseph. The 2 sons of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh, became part of Jacob's children, and they fell under the house of Joseph. And so just as the Father was going to raise up Judah, that replaced Reuben with the firstborn blessing, Joseph was going to receive the firstborn blessing as being the firstborn son from Rachel. And this is how the Father comes, and he then gives Jeroboam the opportunity to say, just like, isn't it amazing? Who was the one that was leading the tribes into the promised land? None other than Yahushua, Joshua. And where did he come from? The tribe of Ephraim. And he's the one who bears Yahushua's name. He bears the name. But then there is Caleb. And Caleb's from which tribe? He was from the tribe of Judah. But together, Joshua and Caleb were the only two that were able to enter the promised land out of the original however million that came out of the land of Egypt. Only two. The two that would represent the two houses, those two olive trees that had split. Eventually, they would split. They became one house in Jacob. They were 12 tribes, eventually 13 tribes, 14 in Jacob. But then there's a split that happens with Rehoboam and Jeroboam. And eventually Israel goes up north with Jeroboam. Those 10 tribes go up north with Jeroboam. Jeroboam starts going into terrible idolatry. And as he goes into idolatry, he even goes as far as being able to, instead of the people keeping the feast for the Father on the 7th month, he makes them keep a feast on the 8th month. He totally goes into idolatry. He takes them as far as Tal Dan. And then this is where the northern kingdom, this is where they go astray. The house of Israel go astray until eventually they get dispersed into Syria, and from there into the nations of the world. And so when Yahushua comes back, he comes back with a message and he says, I came for the lost tribes of the house of Israel. And he starts his ministry in the north, in Galilee. He doesn't start his ministry in the south, in Jerusalem, where the house of Judah is. He goes north to the northern kingdom, because these are the ones that he's got to bring in. And so when we have a look at this house, this is what we've got to establish. Who is this house? Because we understand that this house was split. So they were going to become two lots of people. But when Elijah built the altar, he built the altar when he sacrificed for the 12 tribes of the house of Israel, because they need to become one house. And this is everything of what the Father's desire is, to bring a house to become one house. So that is why when we get to Revelation chapter 7, let's go to Revelation chapter 7. When there is a sealing off that is taking place in Revelation chapter 7, it's not a sealing off of just 2 tribes. It's a sealing off of 12 tribes. And these are those that are making up a house. And they make up a house of 144,000. Because we will understand, according to Ezekiel chapter 37, that the dry bones need to come together. The house of Joseph and the house of Judah must come together and become one house. Keep your hand there on Revelation chapter 7, and let's just quickly go and look at Ezekiel chapter 37 of the dry bones. I know we've spoken this many times, but we've got to lay a foundation. I can't just give you scriptures without there being a foundation. There has to be a foundation. And he says, and you, son of man, verses 16, and you, son of man, because he talks to him and he says in Ezekiel 37 verses 5, thus said the Master Yahuwah to these bones, see, I'm bringing into you a spirit, and you shall live, and I shall put sinew on you, and bring flesh upon you, and cover you with skin, and put spirit in you, and you shall live, and you shall know that I am Yahuwah. And then he starts to tell him to prophesy to these dry bones. And then he says to him in verses 16, and you, son of man, take a stick for yourself and write on it for Yahudah and for the children of Israel, his companions. Then take another stick and write on it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel, his companions. So you see, one is going to stand for the house of Israel, but for Yahudah. The other one's going to stand for the house of Israel, but for Ephraim, for Joseph. Then bring them together for yourself into one stick, and they shall become one in your hand. And when the children of your people speak to you, saying, won't you show us what you mean by this? Say to them, thus says the Master Yahuah, see, I'm taking the stick of Joseph, which is in the land of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel, his companions, and I shall give them unto him with one stick of Yahudah, and make them one stick, and they shall be one in my hand. You see, they shall be one in his hands. And the stick on which you write shall be in your hand before their eyes, and speak to them. Thus says the Master Yahuah, see, I'm taking the children of Israel from among the nations wherever they have gone, and I shall gather them from all around, and I shall bring them into their land. And so now they think that this is the fullness of what's going on in the land of Israel now. No, it's not the fullness of what's going on, because that's only the ones from Judah. Where is the rest of the tribes? They are not gathered, because Judah was the only ones that stayed faithful. All the others had gone astray. So he says, and I shall make them one nation in the land on the mountains of Israel, and one sovereign shall be sovereign over them all. And let them no longer be two nations, and let them no longer be divided in two reigns, because that's what they had been. And this goes right through the Kings, Chronicles, until eventually they get dispersed. The house of Israel gets dispersed into the nations, and that's why Yahushua has to come to gather us back. And they shall no longer defile themselves with their idol, nor with their disgusting matters, nor with any of their transgressions. And I shall save them from all their dwelling places in which they have sinned, and I shall cleanse them, and they shall be my people, and I shall be their law. So you see, he's the one who's going to cleanse us. He's the one who's going to be able to come and gather us. And then he says in verse 26, and I shall make a covenant of peace with them, an everlasting covenant. It is with them, and I shall place them and increase them, and shall place my set-apart place in their midst forever. That is when he's going to bring his temple. So I tell you something. His temple is not going to be a temple that is going to be there now. And that is why that place is going to come under severe judgment. He's going to have to cleanse that place. And my dwelling place shall be over them, and I shall be their law, and they shall be my people. And the nations shall know that I am Yahuah. I'm setting Israel apart, when my set-apart place is in their midst forever. So, beloveds, he's the one who's going to set his heckle there, not man. But this is what is going on in that land. They're trying to enact everything of what is written in the Bible to be able to bring about the things that is written in this Bible. But yes, things have to happen in order for the fulfillment of the Father's word to be able to take place. So if we go to Zechariah chapter 6, listen to what it says in Zechariah chapter 6. And we read from verse 11. And you shall take the silver and the gold and make a crown, and set it on the head of Yahushua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, and shall speak to him, saying, thus says Yahuah of hosts, see, the man whose name is the branch. Who's the one whose name is the branch? From the stump of Jesse. That is Yahushua himself. And from his place he shall branch out, and he shall build the heckle of Yahuah. So Yahushua himself is the one who's going to build the heckle of Yahuah. And that is why these two olive trees are going to branch out. And these two olive trees are the ones that are going to be the faithful remnant from the house of Israel, the faithful remnant from the house of Judah. See, these are the things that have not quite been explained, because many people are teaching, they're teaching scriptures, and they're making it about what's going on there in the land at the moment. But those scriptures cannot fulfill what has already been written. That what is there cannot fulfill what has been written in Ezekiel chapter 37, because it's not the fullness of the house. It has not fulfilled what is written in Jeremiah chapter 32. It has not fulfilled what is written in Jeremiah chapter 31. It has not fulfilled what is written in Ezekiel chapter 36 and Ezekiel chapter 37. It has not fulfilled it. Because in a lot of these scriptures, they will dwell in safety, and he will be in their midst. And they will be his people, and they will dwell in safety. And so that is why in Revelation chapter 7, we get to the place of where we read, and it says, and after this I saw 4 messengers standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, and the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor any tree. And I saw another messenger coming up from the rising of the sun, holding the seal of the living Yahuah, and he cried with a loud voice to the 4 messengers to whom it was given to harm the earth and the sea. So see, beloveds, this is what's coming. This is now where they are going to be able to bring the destruction, which is going to happen then by, these are the messengers, the 7 messengers, to bring the judgments. But listen to what he says. Verse 3, do not harm the earth, nor the sea, nor the trees, until we have sealed the servants of our Yahuah upon their foreheads. So he's got to seal 12 tribes. And who are these? These are the 144,000 that are a faithful remnant. They're not just anybody. And this is what we need to establish. They're not just anybody. So he says, and I heard the number of those who were being sealed, 144,000 sealed out of all the tribes of the children of Israel. So these are those that are being sealed. And they are making up the fullness of a house. They're not making up 2 tribes of Judah and Benjamin. And they're not making up 10 tribes that was under Jeroboam, that was of Ephraim. They are making up a fullness of a house. And it says, of the tribe of Yehudah. So it's the tribe of Yehudah, the tribe of Reuben, the tribe of Gad, the tribe of Asher, the tribe of Naphtali, the tribe of Manasseh, the tribe of Simeon, the tribe of Levi, the tribe of Issachar, the tribe of Zebulun, the tribe of Joseph, the tribe of Benjamin. These were the ones that were being sealed off. 12,000 of each. And then when we get to Revelation 14, in Revelation 14, and then we get to verse 1, and it says, and I looked, and I saw a lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written upon their foreheads. And I heard a voice out of heaven, like the voice of many waters, and like the voice of a loud thunder. And I heard the sound of harpists playing their harps. And they sang a renewed song before the throne and before the 4 living creatures and the elders. And no one was able to learn that song except the 144,000 who were redeemed from the earth. So they were being redeemed from the earth. And they are those who are not defiled with woman, for they are maidens. So they are the virgins. Okay, so we are going to understand the parable of the virgins. Because people will say, yes, but this of you must be men, because they were not defiled with women. They are maidens, they are virgins. Well, then we might as well say that those other ones, the 10 virgins, are only virgins then. So we got to look at this. They are those following the Lamb wherever he leads them on. They were redeemed from among men, being first fruits to Yahuah and to the Lamb. So you see, they have the seal of the Father's name upon their foreheads. They walk in the Father's ways. They walk in his character. They have the character of that name, and they have the name of Yahuah written on their foreheads. And then people want to say to me, but the name is not important. The name is very important, and that is why we are being returned back to that name. How do you walk in a character of a person's name that you don't even know? They were redeemed from among men, being first fruits to Yahuah and to the Lamb, and in their mouth was found no falsehood. So our mouths have got to be cleaned up from the falsehood, for they are blameless before the throne of Yahuah. And I saw another messenger flying in the heaven, holding the everlasting good news to announce to those dwelling on the earth, even to every nation and tribe and tongue, saying with a loud voice, Fear Yahuah, and give esteem to him, because the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him, who made the heaven and the earth and the sea and the fountains of water. So yeah, we understand that this is a remnant that is made up of 144,000, that's made up of a house, a fullness of a house. It's the fullness of a house. There is a remnant bride. There will be others, but this is a remnant, and it's made up of a fullness of a house, where the two olive trees need to become a people. And so when we look at the menorah, let's go to Revelation chapter 1. So in Revelation chapter 1, and we are going to read from verse 10. And I came to be in the Spirit on the day of Yahuah, and I heard behind me a loud voice as of a trumpet, saying, I am the Aleph and the Tav, the first and the last, and write in a book what you see, and send it to the 7 assemblies of Asia, to Ephesus and Smyrna and Pergamos and Thyatira and Sardis and Philadelphia and Laodicea. And I turned to see the voice which spoke with me, and having turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands. And in the midst of the 7 lampstands, one like the son of Adam, dressed in a robe down to the feet, and girded about the chest with a golden band. And his head and hair were white as white wool, as snow, and his eyes as a flame of fire, and his feet like burnished brass, as if refined in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. And in his right hand he held 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword, and his face was as the sun shining in its strength. And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as dead, and he placed his right hand on me, saying, Do not be afraid, I am the first and the last, and the living one. And I became dead, and see, I am living forever and ever. Amen. And I possess the keys of Sheol and of death. Write therefore what you have seen, both what is now and what shall take place after these. Okay, now we get to verse 20. So there were 7 golden lampstands. Now I'm expounding on the vision of Zechariah chapter 4 for us to understand what the Father is doing, what the Father is saying, so that we may understand 2 olive trees that are feeding a lampstand. A bowl, and the bowl feeds the lampstand. So, the secret of the 7 stars, which you saw in my right hand, and the 7 golden lampstands, the 7 stars are messengers of the 7 assemblies, and the 7 lampstands, which you see, are 7 assemblies. So, they were made up of 7 churches, 7 assemblies. Right. So, they're going to represent groups of people. Once again, we need to understand, who are they representing? So we understand the 7 churches, and we understand it's the 7 lampstands, which is the church of Ephesus, the church of Smyrna, the church of Pergamos, the church of Thyatira, the church of Sardis, the church of Philadelphia. These are the 7 churches. But out of these 7 churches, again, there's only 2 faithful churches. So there's 7, but 2 are faithful. And that is what we need to look at to understand, once again, 2 houses. Once again, house of Israel, house of Judah. Let's understand 2 houses that are going to make up a group of people. And we will understand that in the end, they're going to be one people. Let's look and see. So we're going to go and read Revelation chapter 2, and we're going to read about the church of Smyrna. And to the messenger of the assembly in Smyrna write this: the first and the last. Okay, so there's the first and there's the last. Those that will be first will be last, and those that will be last will be first. So there's the first and the last, who became dead and came to life. So they will be the persecuted, but they will be alive. They are the ones that are going to have to go through many things, but yet they will be alive. Now, first of all, we need to go look at that Smyrna. What does that Smyrna mean? What does Smyrna mean? Smyrna is myrrh. The root word of the meaning of myrrh in Hebrew means bitter. That was so interesting to me today. Oh, wow. What a revelation. So Smyrna means bitter, and it was used for death and burial. Myrrh symbolizes bitterness, suffering, and affliction. That's what it represents. And so if we go look and see, myrrh has this thing about it's bitter, and it symbolizes bitterness, suffering, and this affliction, thlipsis, hardships. So we've got to understand that Yahushua himself is the first and the last. He comes as the Aleph and as the Tav. Abba Yahuah started in Genesis as Aleph, and he ends with the whole book of Revelation, because the whole book of Revelation is revealing. It's the revelation of the Tav, who is Yahushua in the Tav. And so here we understand that these are a people that are going to be able to will have gone through pressure. So in verses 9, let's look at verse 9. I know your works and pressure and poverty, yet you are rich. And the blasphemy of those who say they are Yehudim and are not, but a congregation of Satan. Oh, beloveds, this will read 1,000 words when we really understand. So this is the pressure. So this, where it says, I know your works and pressure. This is the word thlipsis, which is the pressing, which is the oppression, which is the affliction, which is the tribulation, which is the distress, which is anguish, which is persecution, which is trouble and suffering. And this is sometimes where the bitterness of soul comes. And you know what? I have understood that bitter, it's because you're drinking the cup of the persecution, of the trial, of everything that brings this bitterness in you. And then you stand, and then you'll have those in the land that say they are Jews but are not. So there are many in the land that are supposedly say that they are Jews, but they are not. They have brought many out of the nations because they're gathering their own tribes. I mean, you got a workforce that has come in of Russian people that have come in as a workforce. And then they bring in abominations with them, but they are a workforce, so it's okay. Then you've got those coming in that many of the ones that are there are known as Khazars. They were not original Jews. They are Khazars. And then you have a lot of original ones but they are in the dispersion. But they may not return. And then they go in the land, and they long to be where they belong. They are the ones that are in the nations that want to return to the land. They come to the land, and the minute they get there, they know that they are home. But they cannot return to the land. And this causes a persecution in them, a oppression in them, an affliction in them, that brings a bitterness in them. Because this is their land. And even though they have returned back to the ways of the Father, they may not return. They may not return to the land. And then they look at those in the land that say they are Jews, but they are not. And it makes it even more difficult. And then he says, do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. So you see, there's going to be a lot of suffering that's going to go on even in that nation. There is a lot of suffering that's going to come for those that are going to have to stand for Messiah Yahushua. So in the nations, we are about to be, and we've got to understand this synagogue of Satan, because we have to understand that there is a movement that is on the earth at the moment that is to be able to oppress and bring us under a regime of 7 Noahide laws. And this is going to want to oppress the people, to conform, because they say that they are the Jews. They say they are Yehudim, but they are not. They are a synagogue of Satan. They have been put there to be able to fulfill his plan. They are the counterfeit. They are everything of the counterfeit. That spirit of the anti-Messiah. And that is the spirit that you see operating in that land. Because if you believe in the Messiah, you may not come in that land and think that you can say to them, well, I believe in Messiah. You will be an enemy of the state. So the state becomes a problem. Because then that becomes it's serving Hasatan. Because they are going to be against Yahushua, against everything that he stands for, against him. You become an enemy. There is no person that is able to enter into that land, that is able to go and want to return to the land, and they can stand there and say, yes, I'm a believer in Yahushua. They will not be allowed to return. And they've been told that to their faces, and they've been denied. How many of them have been denied? How many of them have been sent back? Denied. Even though they have children that are serving in the army there. But if the parent is known to be a believer, and they know that, they will deny them entry into the land. So this is the problem. So there's going to be a time coming where we would have to be beheaded for our faith. And it says, do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. See, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison in order to try you, and you shall have pressure 10 days. Be trustworthy until death, and I shall give you the crown of life. So we have to understand that there is going to be this pressure. There's going to be oppression. There's going to be affliction. There's going to be tribulation. There's going to be distress. There's going to be anguish. There's going to be persecution. There's going to be trouble. And even if we are in poverty, or even if we are rich, but we are going to have to suffer. And that suffering is, we are going to be afflicted, and we are going to have to suffer pressure. But he says, but I shall give you the crown of life. And where does it talk about the crown of life? Now, the crown of life is spoken of in James chapter 1, verses 12. So let's go to James chapter 1, verses 12, and it says, blessed is the man who does endure trial. So you see, beloveds, we're going to have to endure trial. For when he has been proved, when he has been tested, when he has been tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Master has promised to those who love him. So you see, because we love him, we will be willing to go through the pressure and the trial and the persecution and everything else, and we will endure. We will endure. And so next week we will carry on, and then we will look at the second church. We will look at the Church of Philadelphia, because there were only two faithful churches. The one is the Church of Smyrna, and they will be tested and tried 10 days. But we will understand that they actually together make up this menorah. We will continue next week then. Thank you, Abba, for your word. And I just want to thank you for this Shabbat. And we just want to bless your name and bless your people. Let us pray the Aaronic blessing. Yeverechacha Yahuah v'yishmerecha. Yair Yahuah panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisai Yahuah panav elecha v'yisem lecha shalom. Yahuah bless you and keep you. Yahuah make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yahuah lift up his face to you and give you shalom. Shabbat shalom.